All right, so what? Am I hearing myself? Am I hearing myself? Anyway, I think I'm okay. Something's echoing here. Anyway, so I wanted to talk to you about a few different things. We are going to focus on celibacy, sexual energy, and I'm going to share with you an exercise which will be helpful not only for people who are practicing celibacy, but even people who aren't. It's an excellent exercise. So while I'm on the subject, I'm realizing myself, I woke up this morning and I was looking over this because I knew I wanted to share this. I've talked to a couple people and said, there's this technique for, changing the direction of the flow of the sexual energy when you're celibate, and it really helps it. And so I had to look it up again, and I haven't practiced it in years. And I ended up doing a little bit of I realized I was really stiff, and so I did, I used to teach Kundalini yoga, so I did a little bit of yoga just to loosen myself up, and realizing, this is really good. So it made me realize that if you're doing energy work, if you're doing mantra and ritual, it's important to also have a strong, flexible body. One of the things that does happen, I've gotten into this myself at times, is you just do Qigong and maybe some mantra, but the body starts to get kind of, if you don't exercise, the body gets kind of soft and stiff, and so I thought it was important to bring that up, and I'm going to start talking about this more. At some point, I will probably put together, if I can figure out a way how I want to film it, because I'm lazy. I don't want to have to actually set up the camera and the tripod and all that. But I may actually come up with a short routine which will help people to, stretch things that need to be stretched and strengthen the core a little bit. And the reason why that's important is because we're dealing with a lot of energy. So, your body and your nervous system, your ligaments, your muscles, they need to also be in good condition as well to handle the energy. The higher the energy, you got to have a good, strong body. And a lot of people, myself included, go through periods of toxicity where there's been a lot of eating crappy foods, or, things like Diet Coke. By the way, I hope none of you listening drink Diet Coke. That is just pure poison. You're better off just drinking regular Coke than drinking that crap. Just off the top of my head. It just amazes me that people look at that. Oh, 0 calories, like that means something. Actually makes you fatter. You didn't know that. Diet sodas make you fatter. It tells your body to store fat. It does the opposite. Just because there's 0 calories on it has nothing to do with weight loss. Trust me. Anyway, sorry that I got on that little subject there. So it's important to have all this stuff. So at some point I will put together a very brief routine. It's not my desire to become a yoga teacher again, or put together a yoga DVDs or any of that stuff. But I do think it's important that we talk about how to deal with energy when it comes to celibacy. There's at least a couple of people that I'm working with who have made that decision, that they want to do that for a lot of great reasons. So, I was celibate for 6.5 years, so I'm using that term kind of loosely. There's a difference between being outside of a sexual relationship, and which I would put under the broad category of celibacy. But there's also the celibacy where you do not have any sexual release. You do not stimulate yourself to climax. And this is really more important for guys than it is for women. Again, I'm talking as a guy. I'm not a woman, so I could be totally wrong. But the consensus is that when it comes to energy retention, this is more important for guys than for women. Having said that, I do not teach any kind of forced celibacy or sexual retention of any kind. What I do teach is that if you can find practices which will naturally change the flow of sexual energy up the spinal column, that's what we want. And if that is working well enough so that you don't feel the need to achieve a release, then we're doing good. But if you're driving yourself crazy and you're, just going crazy with lust, then you need to allow yourself to be human. You gotta go to the bathroom, kind of thing. You gotta clean the pipes out. If you're kind of on the cusp there where you need some help getting the energy moving in the right direction so that you don't achieve a release, then I recommend this exercise I'm going to share with you, which is called Sat Kriya. Any of you, if you've practiced Kundalini Yoga, Yogi Bhajans, there's other kinds of Kundalini Yoga. This is his self-described Kundalini Yoga. Then you're probably familiar with this exercise. But there have been times where I had long periods of celibacy and long periods of no sexual release, and I tried all the different things. I've done all the kinds of things where you don't let yourself release any fluids, and I've done all that, and I'll just touch on this once. Don't do that kind of stuff. There's all kinds of stuff out there. There are books and telling you how to stimulate yourself, bring yourself to climax, and then not release any sexual fluids, and it means nothing. All you end up doing is potentially damaging yourself, and you get this feeling of heightened energy, but it's not. It's not. You've released it, and it's the major problem with it is that if you don't release and you're stimulating yourself sexually and you don't actually release the fluid, then you are just filling your body full of heat. And it's not good kind of heat. It's the kind of heat that stays trapped in you, and then it gets stale and it's unhealthy. So you're better off just releasing when you need to release than doing that kind of crap. And anyway, it's all of the stuff you read about, you have to do all this, and if you don't retain your semen, and if you did blah, all that stuff, it's nonsense. Having been there. Really good energy techniques, you won't even necessarily need to do that. Having said that, for those that want to do it, if you're choosing, number one, to be outside of a sexual relationship, you don't want to give your energy to another person, let's talk about that for a moment. That was the reason that I was celibate. I had been in a relationship. It was probably my first really serious relationship I think it ended when I was 28. Up until that time, all of my relationships were very short-lived. Less than 9 months. So 9 months was the longest I had ever gone. And so this was one that lasted about that. I don't know if it went longer than that. I can't remember, to be honest with you. But it was very serious, and there was talk of marriage, and there was all kind of stuff like that. Anyways, we broke up, and it was very traumatic for me because I felt it was a result of arguing. And to be honest with you, mentally, I was not prepared for a committed relationship. I had so much testosterone in my brain, I could not tolerate the thought. I mean, I just couldn't do it. It was, she probably, as I look back, she probably wasn't the right person for me. A little too codependent, but even so, I just wasn't capable of any kind of, and it was because it was just too much testosterone in my brain. I couldn't, I couldn't empathize. I couldn't do the, I was very reactive to her emotions, and women, again, generally speaking. Let's just talk about that for a second. If you've noticed, if you go to the playground, little kids, you will see little girls playing with each other. They will look each other in the face, and they'll hold each other's hands, and they'll talk to each other, and they're very animated, and they'll touch each other, and it's, I guess adult women do this too. They get very loud, and they're very expressive, and when we hear that, we wince because it sounds like somebody's about to get into a fight. And so that's why, by the way, ladies, when you get really emotional and you want your man to hear what you're saying, he gets that look and he starts to shut down. Because in the man's mind, the testosterone-fueled mind, that kind of intensity means that we are ramping up to war. So you'll see women and girls will do that. They'll touch each other, really engage, a lot of intensity, a lot of emotion. Not all the time, but sometimes. And guys, a lot of times they'll stand next to each other. They won't face each other because that's, you don't face the alpha male lion in the eyes. You don't face the alpha male wolf in the eyes. And you don't face the silverback gorilla. You don't look him in the eyes either. So looking directly in the eyes, especially face to face, for the testosterone-fueled male, instinctively puts them on the defense, and it's a challenge. So, that's why when that's going on, that's why men either start to shut down, or they start to respond, or they will try and fix it, and then the yelling starts and all that. Because for them, it's very confusing for us because we think you're that you want to go to war. So we don't understand that what you really want is to connect. So again, guys don't do this. Anyway, the point is that was difficult for me, and it was so traumatic for me, and I felt so. At that time, I had this judgment that women were this controlling, and manipulative, and they steal your energy, because I felt drained. All my energy was I just felt drained all the time of my energy. And so I started practicing this Taoist internal martial art, and the teacher was talking about the feminine, and that if you're not in the right relationship, then the man especially will feel his energy being drained from him, especially through sex. And I said, that was all the excuse I needed, and I said, that's it, I'm going celibate, no more relationships, because I was getting all this power from the spirit fighting. Huge amounts of power that I was getting, and I was like, wow, I am not giving this up. Now, my views have changed a little bit, but at the same time, all of the time that I put into that, my energy went through the roof, and a lot of my abilities came as a result of practicing while being celibate, both not being in a relationship, which was the main thing, not sharing my energy with another person, but also, for long periods of not releasing. And I was able to, with exercises like the one I'm going to show you today, how I was able to turn the energy so that it went up instead of flowing down. In fact, when I broke that 6.5 years of celibacy, I actually had to make an effort. It was like it wasn't, like the energy didn't want to flow that way, and I actually had to make the mental effort to turn the energy around. And it was, I did it in the wrong way. I didn't do it in a way that was constructive for me, and I actually got physically sick. I lost huge amounts of energy. I felt it, and then I got sick and depressed. So, this stuff matters. Now, I'm not celibate now, and I haven't been. So, you can enjoy a completely, very vibrant, regular sex life. You can basically have as much sex as you want. You can still take care of yourself energetically. So the two ideals are that you are single and celibate and working on yourself and empowering your energy. And the other ideal is that you are in a relationship with a partner whom you are emotionally committed to, and that your partner, there's an equal give and take, because in the sexual act, there will be a release of energy on both sides. The man will probably feel it more, which is why, ladies, men fall asleep. That's why they fall asleep right after sex, because there has been a huge release of energy. Ideally, he has a partner. If he's really committed to her, he wants to give her this energy. In fact, guys, when they're younger, this is one of the reasons why guys are trying to get laid, because it's driving them crazy. They can't sleep. There's so much energy, it's driving them crazy. And so that's why they're always running around looking, that's why guys are dogs. That's why. I'm not justifying it. That's just a fact. That's just the way it's the way nature has wired us. And of course, the generalization is that women are more selective because they have, only so many eggs, and they only, so they want to find the best, genetic donor for their eggs. And guys, on the other hand, are literally, they're creating millions of sperm, I don't know, per minute or per second or something like that. And so they've got a completely different biological agenda, which is to, it's the shotgun approach. They're just going to try and, they're going to try and inseminate as many as possible. So it's a totally different approach on the physical level, but it also translates over into the sexual arena, which is that when the guy ideally is committed and in love, he really gives a lot of his energy to his partner. Now, her job is to take that energy and to process it and give it back. So she does give energy. In the sexual act, it is said that, and I believe it, it is said that she will surround him with her aura, and then both of their auras will expand to something like 10 feet. So it creates this huge energetic, encapsulation of energy. And so that should be her mindset. I mean, she should just be into it to enjoy herself also. So, I mean, I firmly believe in people having a good time and, making sure everybody's happy and all that kind of stuff. But, in the perfect world where, it's just the act of, physical coupling, her mindset is to receive his energy and then to give it back to him. So she surrounds him. This is really important. I've shared about this before, but we don't understand it so much in this culture now, but men are absolutely empowered by women. They get their power from women. But in order for that to happen, again, generally speaking, in order for that to happen, the woman has to trust the man and trust his, feel that he's got her back. I've heard that phrase before. I've had women, look me in the face and say, "I just want to know that you have my back," and it means that you're, and the typical complaint from women is, "I just wish I could depend on him." Typical complaint from men is, "I just wish she would stop criticizing me." So when a woman feels safe and feels that the strength of the man is there, and the phallic symbol is everything. Just the phallic symbol it's immovable. It's it's strong. It's hard. That represents something she can depend on. She can depend on him. That he will be, her anchor and her strength. But he is looking for her power. So that's, again, we're talking generally speaking, that is the trade-off. That the men will give their one-pointedness, their guidance. Guidance is the right word. It's more like the leadership of where the energy goes. The feminine surrounds that, and again, you can see that in the symbolism of the act itself. The feminine surrounds that, and then the combined auras begin to, really expand. So she expands his aura. This is absolutely the case. when you hear the typical of when a man is in love and I would do anything for you, I would win the world for you, I would conquer all of the whatever, and I would bring down the moon. That is him feeling as though his aura is expanding, his viewpoint, his belief in himself, the belief to conquer the world comes from the Shakti of the feminine. It surrounds him and empowers him, and that gives him the strength to go and win, conquer everything for her. Because then he is stronger, he's more stable, she gives more of her energy back to him, and he gives more to her, and it just goes on and on. Okay, so that's the ideal. And that isn't always the case, and of course there's, we've got other kinds of scenarios where, not everybody is, on the opposite side of the spectrum in terms of their femininity or masculinity, and we've got, same-sex partners and all that kind of stuff. But at some point there is going to be this kind of a dance in the relationship. So if you're not in that kind of a relationship where you can really just let yourself be, let your guard down and be safe and be vulnerable, which is ideally what both partners are doing, then if you're doing this kind of energy work and you're wanting to build up your energy, then you need to be empowering yourself. So this is what yoga is all about. Yoga means union, by the way. So let's talk a little bit about yoga. And I'll bring in the Tantric yoga. I roll my eyes whenever I hear people talking about tantric sex. There's no such thing. There's Tantra, and the Tantra is about the union of Shiva and Shakti. And there are tantric techniques. I teach a form of Tantra. Whenever you get a reading from me, and I am giving you the mantra and the directions and that is a form of Tantra. So, of course I teach that. I teach the union of the masculine and the feminine. But Tantra also means technique. And so specific energy techniques is what Tantra is about. And in India, if somebody is a Tantric yogi, it has nothing to do with sex. It means that this is somebody who is working with Kundalini, with life force energy. There's a very good chance this person is celibate, meaning that they are doing what we're talking about. They're choosing to use their sexual energy to open up the meridians and open up the third eye and the pineal and the pituitary and all that kind of stuff. And so among all of those thousands and thousands and thousands of techniques, there are some that can be done with a partner of the opposite sex, and it is not meant to be for sexual pleasure or for procreation. It is about, the interchange of energies, and there is no release. It's not, you're not doing it to get stimulated or to enjoy it. In fact, you have to kind of work not to do that so that you can focus on the energy. And this is what tantric sex is. This modern Western nonsense. I mean, it's not nonsense. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I would more call it energetic sex, or I would call it, consciousness sexuality or whatever. Intimacy. I mean, there's all that stuff there, and but it's, I you have to forgive me. I actually knew somebody that she called herself a tantric, and she was wrapped up in this tantric sexuality, and I'm like, well, show me what that is. And she's, it's basically energy work. And it was energy work to get me all hot and bothered, and then she would siphon all of the energy, and it does stuff to you, but I was like, man, I'm not enjoying this at all. All I'm doing is getting teased out of my mind, and nothing's coming out of it. It wasn't true tantric sex at all. And most of the time when you're talking about tantric sex, what you're really talking about is some new age sort of idea where couples come together and have more intimate, longer, more of an emotional connection, which really is, there's nothing tantric about it. That's just good sex, really, in my opinion. So let me just get rid of that nonsense about tantric sex. So let's see, I want to make sure that I covered all the bases here. So there is a place for celibacy, meaning being separated and not being in a relationship, you know, an emotional sexual relationship. And there is a place within that for taking extended periods and not having any sexual release, as long as it's done naturally without any strain or difficulty, and not with any of these stupid, ridiculous, you know, self-stimulation techniques and then denying yourself an orgasm. None of that has any. That is, you're much better off just having sex. Just let me tell you that you're much better off doing that. None of those things work. They, at the very least, at the worst, they can be damaging to you emotionally, psychologically, and to your nervous system. And when you build up all of that heat in that way, once it gets past a certain point, it has to be released. And if it's not released, then those fluids and that energy, that hot energy, just basically like bakes you from the inside. You know, it's really not good for you. So I hope I've made that clear. And so now let's talk about this technique called Sat Kriya, which again can be done whether you are celibate or not. It's a really good technique. So I am not going to teach it to you in this video. I am going to have a link below in the Patreon. On the Patreon page, there will be a link that will take you to it. It's a very popular technique, so you know, it's not like I'm inventing or showing you something secret. It's all over the web. If you've practiced Kundalini yoga, you're familiar with it. But let me tell you the dynamics behind it. First off, the posture is going to be on your knees in, I think it's called rock pose, where you're sitting on your knees and your heels are kind of poked up into your butt cheeks there, and they're pressing on some meridian points. But you're also using the diaphragm to pump the energy, and you're also using, ideally, I don't know if he talks about it in the video, but you also use the perineum. You squeeze the perineum. And so you use the perineum to pump the sexual energy and perhaps the fluids even up the spinal column. So this is done for this very reason, and it's a great way to start the day. By the way, if you want to wake up, do 7 minutes of this. You'll be wide awake. But I recommend doing, in the beginning, doing 3 minutes. And there's 2 different hand postures. Let me show you the picture for that here. So you see the guy has his palms together like that. He's just holding his palms together like I do with Genie or whatever it is. And in this particular picture, the woman has her fingers like that. And they share about that, you know, what you do is you clasp the fingers, and then what they call the Jupiter fingers, which is the index fingers, are pointing out, and then you put the thumb right over left, so the left goes inside the right. That's the default position. What they teach is that this is the way that men do it, and women do it the opposite way. They put the left over the right. I'm a man, I do that kind of just by habit right now, so I'm willing to go ahead and say follow those directions. And let's see what else. I'm getting distracted. People do this. They stand outside my window and they talk. And I really wish they would just go somewhere else. You know, they sit in front of my window and talk. Drives me crazy. Anyway, I've been battling with some frustration today. Where was I? All right, now that I say that, they shut up. So what are we doing here? All right, so those are the two hand postures. And this one is supposed to be, it's supposed to be less intense. And it's also easier, so like there are people that do this for like, 31 minutes or things like that, and they do it for really long periods of time. And so this makes it easier. It takes more strength to hold the hands together, because when you clasp like this and your arms want to drop, you can, it's easier for you to, keep the posture. But this one is supposed to be more intense. I just recommend doing this one. I've done both. And, this one works perfectly good, because, you've got that whole kind of mudra thing here that I teach anyway. You've got this, the energy of, that we do in this mudra. You got the energy of thunar, so you can do that. Let me talk to you a little bit about the mantra. There's a mantra that they teach as well, which is Sat Nam. So for those of you who are purists in the northern tradition, feel free to do this same mantra. It will work very well. Sat just means truth. So let's talk about that for a second. In English, we only have one word for truth, which is truth, but it doesn't mean the same thing that it used to. The Indo-European language had at least two words for truth. One meant the truth of energetic existence, and the other one meant the truth of your vow. So our ancestors didn't have what I've heard people call cash register honesty. Cash register honesty is saying, oh, you know what, they give you back $1 too much change, and so you say, oh, you gave me $1 too much. That truth, the kind of truth that says, yes, at 5 p.m. I was in my car driving, or yes, Your Honor, I have an alibi. I'm telling you the truth. I was not, I did not steal the whatever, That kind of truth, that's called cash register honesty, which is you're just talking about the existence of a fact. But our ancestors didn't see truth like that. Truth was the truth of existence, which was Sat. And I don't know what the original Indo-European, I think it might have been exactly that, or it might have been Sant with an N. And there are places around the world, still even in Europe, that they use that word for truth. In Old English, it was Sooth. Actually, that's not Middle English. In Shakespearean English, it was Sooth. Before that, in Old English, it was Soth. And that's because the Anglo-Saxons and some of the Scandinavians had a tendency to take the ah sound and make an o out of it. Just like people, when they say asatru, they'll say osatru. So man became mon, which became moon. So sooth. So sooth wasn't cash register honesty. It was sat, the truth of energetic existence. The truth of the universe, the truth of being, that kind of truth. So you can't really put words to it. There's just like, you're in truth, man. You're in sat. And then there's troth, which is you give your troth to somebody. That's why when English royals marry, they give their troth. That's truth. Troth is your vow. You make a vow towards somebody, and then you stick to that vow. That's what we now use for truth, which is really, I swear to you, this is the troth. I didn't do this, or I did do that. So anyway. So the Sat Nam, the second word is Nam, N-A-M, and it means name. Same language. We pronounce it name in modern English, but it's pronounced Nam. So Sat Nam means, if you talk about somebody's name, and this particular, I'll tell you where this comes from. This comes from the Sikh religion. A lot of people think, and for some reason, I don't know why, if you look it up, you'll see people will say that Sikhism is a fusion of Hinduism and Islam. And that's just absolutely, completely false. The Sikh religion came out of Hinduism. It is absolutely an evolution of Vedic religion, which came through Hinduism, which then their own little side thing of Sikhism. Now, it seems a lot like monotheism because they worship the Nam, the name. They'll say they worship the name of God, and so they're almost like monotheists, but they're not talking about a Jehovah God. They're talking about getting to the essence of reality. They have all kinds of rules and regulations. They wear turbans. So they have these big turbans and beards. The guy who does the video, you see, he's a yogic Sikh, and then a real Sikh would look at them and like, they're not really Sikhs. But in any case, he follows a type of Sikh religion, and that's Yogi Bhajan was a Sikh, and he was a yogi, and so he threw together all kinds of Hindu and Sikh and all this kind of stuff. In any case, this is a very sacred piece of a mantra, Sat Nam, the name of truth, however you want to look at it. It's a very deep concept. Each one of those words are very deep. But Nam doesn't mean name like I call you by the name. It means the essence of who you are. Your name is who you are. That's why when you give somebody a spiritual name, it's because that is their essence, and we are describing the essence of who they are. Or you're attracting a specific essence to you that will fill you and be what you project to the world. So I thought about changing it, but I decided not to because the way that those syllables work, the S and the T especially, work really well to drive the energy up and to open up the upper centers. It's really powerful, so I'm just going to leave it as it is. If it works, don't fix it, and it's not outside of what we're doing. For those of us who are really trying to stay within the Northern tradition, we are still talking about deep Indo-European religious and spiritual concepts. So there's that. I think I've explained it again. I'm not going to go through it, but there's that technique for you. My suggestion is, if you want to try it, start 3 minutes. Do it 3 minutes every day. One thing, don't overdo it. Let me just tell you that. Do not overdo it. You're better off doing 3 minutes a day every day than trying to do what I've done in the past, which is but at the time I was a celibate yogi and all that. It was a totally different deal. Where I'm doing it for 31 minutes. Boy, man, you'll be going out of your mind. But it creates a lot of heat. And so if you're not ready for it, it can make you kind of nuts. And I'm thinking about it. It might be why I was a little, I didn't lose it. I didn't get angry at anybody, but I almost did. And I felt that I was really wanting to overreact. And I think it may have been because I did that this morning. It raised a lot of energy in me, and I needed it. I needed it. So I've decided I'm going to start doing some just a small little bit of yoga every morning to stretch and to, once again, strengthen my body a little bit. It's because, I'm really realizing now I've just come out of this number 9 year that we talked about in the previous video, and all the crap that I've been through this past year. I need to clean that out. I need to, release some of that. And stretching, yogic stretching, is a great way to release a lot of pent-up, embedded, emotional things in the body and the ligaments. So I'm going to do that for myself. It helped me woke up this morning, and it helped me, I could feel, maybe that's, I think, some of my anger. I think that's what it is. I've been, I had to just kind of knuckle under and, bend over and take it for a full year. Now I'm ready to release all that. So I think I've covered everything. I don't know if I have or not. But as I said, follow the link below. And I guess here's one other thing I want to say. If you can, I recommend doing it the way that it's laid out. which is to sit on your knees, to literally sit on your heels, on your knees, and the way they do it. You might not be able to do that. I can't do that right now. I've had all of the injuries that I've had, and I haven't done yoga in so long. So that's a tough posture for me. I do think that it's okay to do it seated if you can do it a half lotus. I would recommend putting a pillow under your butt so that you're raising your butt a little bit. You can do it in a chair. You're not going to get the same benefit from it, but you can do it in a chair. So do it however you can. Because this does raise a lot of energy, I recommend that you ground yourself afterwards. So that means putting your hands over your navel and breathing deeply. Because it could release a lot of stuff. Listen to your body and make sure that your posture is right. Try and do your best to follow the instructions as they're given, because these guys do know what they're talking about. And this will be very powerful. It's powerful regardless. And here's what I would recommend. I don't recommend that you do it along with the celestial qigong. Ideally, what I would recommend is that you do this in the morning when you wake up, or sometime during the day when you need to be woken up. Don't do it at noon because the energy is too hot at noon. Afternoon is kind of hot too. So again, morning, late morning, get up at sunrise, whatever you want. That's a very powerful time because it creates that kind of heat, the energy of the new day. So it'll give you heat, it'll give you energy to move on through the day. And then I recommend doing your qigong at night before you go to bed. So if you're going to do both, that's how I recommend it. I'm not opposed to the idea of doing it and then doing your mantra if you want afterwards, but that's, I know I'm going to get the question of, should I do my qigong before or after? So I would have them be separate. They're different kinds of energies. This is more kind of hot kundalini, physical type of energy, and the qigong is a different kind of energy. And it's the qigong you can do anytime. It's more powerful in my experience if it's done at night, especially before bed. So those are my thoughts about that and my thoughts about celibacy. I know I'm probably going to create more questions than I answer, but I did promise that I would give this out to people who I told them about this exercise. So there it is. Feel free to please change it up. I know I may have given probably different instructions for those of you. I gave you kind of a similar idea behind it. But this is a way that works, so I recommend doing it in this fashion. If you want, like I said, this is a practice that can be done all by itself. It's touted as being one of these all-purpose things that will give you everything, and it is true. It will be one of those things that can really clean you out, really empower you. It will help balance the nervous system, especially, and it'll send energy, regardless of your celibate or not. It'll send energy up into the crown chakra and the pineal and the pituitary. So it'll do a lot of good stuff for you. It's an excellent exercise. And like I said, I think I'm going to start doing it every morning for probably 3 minutes. So I can't think of anything else. So that's it. So, all right, my friends. So I think I'm on schedule for this month now. I think I have maybe one more video to do. My apologies for that. By the way, just as a side note, thank you to everybody for your patience. This month of February has been the busiest yet, and I know a lot of you. I thank you for contacting me and letting me know that I'd run out of spaces, and so I had to create more spaces for some people. And also for those of you who are doing the astrology certification, just know that I am still working on it, and I'm coming. The reason why it's taking so long is a couple of reasons. One is I am super busy, and two is because I'm really thinking about how to implement the final aspect of how to give this out to people. Originally I had said that I was going to siphon off my astrology readings to a specific few. And I've decided to make it more equitable for everybody, including those. Because if I raise my price, the easiest thing for me to do to make the same amount of money and be working less is just raise my price. I'm going to do that. I'm going to raise my price. And instead of that, will set up a scenario where I have less people buying from me. Well, maybe not. We'll see. Maybe more people. But the idea is that I am doing less work for more money. But what I am going to do is I'm going to offer my old rate for you guys, and then I will advertise that, and I will still, if it does happen that I get too many, I will siphon it off to you. But I'm thinking that in the beginning that might not happen as quickly because, I've sort of balanced it out by changing the price structure. So the idea is that you will be the one that will be more affordable. And so those that really want a reading but they don't want to pay my exorbitant prices, they're going to pay for yours instead. And so as long as somebody can show me that they have the basic understanding and can, create a note, the notes the way I do and explain them, at least be accurate. You don't have to be exactly like me, but at least be accurate. Then I will create your own private little landing page on my website that people can go to and they can purchase directly from you. So there will be two ways for them to go. When they come in to buy a reading, they can see, oh, I want him, me, he's whatever, $10,000 a reading. Well, okay, he's worth it. And they'll click on it and they'll go to another page where they can buy from me and find out why I'm going to keep a couple of things to myself that I'm not comfortable teaching yet. But for the average person who just wants a Vedic reading in the Thunder style and they want to pay less, then there'll be a list of people there. So that's me, and I will, of course, will be advertising it. Every time I go on, I will be hammering away at it. I will create a whole video hammering away at why they should go and take things from you. And then you can also do your own, create your own business and, drive people to your page on my site. So you can give them out, the URL of your site, and then they don't have to look at anybody else. And on your site, I will have a video. I'll have to talk about whether or not if you guys want to upload your own introduction, and we'll see how that evolves. But that's my thought process around that, and that's one of the reasons why it's taking so long, is because the original path that I was going on I didn't like. Number one, because it put a lot of pressure on me to, what I don't want to do is to be, doing a lot of busy work or, red tape. I really don't. But it puts a lot of pressure. People are asking me, like, I wonder if I'm going to be one of the special ones, and how many people do you think? And it's like, I don't want to be, people competing and having to make a choice. So I'm going to make it more equitable so that everybody can benefit from it. Having said that, if there comes a time when I am overbooked and people are buying things, from me, and I just don't have the time, I will siphon it off down to you guys. So that's the update on that. And again, there are other things. I'm going to do the same. I think I'm going to do similar things with 9 World Rune readings and with the career consultation. I'm going to start moving more in that. And of course, we're talking about the training for the female staff carriers. So there's a lot coming down the loop. First one is going to be the astrology, and probably second will be the runes. And then we'll move on from that. So anyway, just letting you know, I reserve the right to change or alter any of that in any way I see fit. But understand that my thought process is not only first and foremost for my benefit, but I am also thinking about how to make this, as prosperous and equitable for everybody else as well. So there's that. All right, my friends, stay tuned. I'm sure I'll have a video coming up in a day or so, but please enjoy this. Feel free to email me any questions that you have. And if I'm on live and you're on the Q&A, you can ask about it there too. It helps me to, if you have questions about it, because, then I can, teach it better. So anyway, that's it for now, my friends. I look forward to our next encounter. Best of luck to you.